I'm Turk Strongman, current resident at Mind Voltage. In other orations or lectures, I have provided a detailed cognitive and practical instruction on the 5 general pillars of humanity's capacity for constructive development. Namely, movement away from consciousness hijacking and from perception deception, and movement rather toward personal evolvement, towards self-mastery, and towards true selfhood. At least in the current United States, the probability of imminent totalitarian and artificial intelligence control foreshadows the impossibility of humanity's capacity for each of those 5 movements. Elsewhere, I have also suggested that you apply sufficiently the necessary conditions for said constructive development, while the possibility to do so still exists, and while our capacity to do so is still at hand. Now, if you want to know more about the totalitarian threat in these regards, then you'll want to hear the rest of this video. Let's delve into the psychology of totalitarianism, the mental causes and effects of oppressive regimes. But before we continue, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, take a moment right now to do it. Now's your big chance. That way you can also activate the notification bell feature to be apprised of our new uploads here at the Mind Voltage. Immediately below your media player window, you'll see the thumb up icon. Please click on that to easily and instantly share the joy of this channel with others. And then just a little further down in the video description area, do you see the donation by PayPal information there? Please make a note of it. Now, from neurolaunch.com, by the NeuroLaunch editorial team, September 14th, 2024. The psychology of totalitarianism. Unraveling the mind behind oppressive regimes. From the iron grip of Stalin to the brutal regime of Pol Pot, Cambodia, the specter of totalitarianism has haunted nations, leaving behind a trail of shattered lives and fractured psyches that compel us to delve into the twisted minds that orchestrate these oppressive systems. The dark allure of absolute power has seduced leaders throughout history, transforming once vibrant societies into shadowy realms of fear and conformity. But what drives these megalomaniacs to such extremes? How do they manage to bend entire populations to their will? To understand the psychology of totalitarianism is to peer into the abyss of human nature itself. It's a journey that takes us through a labyrinthine corridors of power, where paranoia and megalomania dance a deadly tango. We'll explore the intricate web of manipulation that ensnares both the rulers and the ruled, leaving no one untouched by its insidious influence. Totalitarianism, that most extreme form of authoritarian rule, seeks to control every aspect of its citizens' lives. It's not content with mere political dominance. It hungers for the very souls of its subjects. From the moment we wake to the instant we drift off to sleep, the watchful eye of the state never blinks. But how does such a system take root and flourish? The seeds of totalitarianism often sprout in the fertile soil of chaos and uncertainty. In the wake of economic collapse, social upheaval, or devastating conflict, people yearn for stability and order. They long for a strong hand to guide them through the storm. And at that moment of vulnerability, the totalitarian seizes their chance. History is littered with examples of such regimes, each leaving an indelible mark on the collective psyche of humanity. The Soviet Union under Stalin, Nazi Germany, Mao's China, North Korea under the Kim dynasty. These are but a few of the nightmarish realms where totalitarianism has held sway. Each unique in its horrors, yet united by a common thread of absolute control and crushing oppression. Understanding the psychology behind the totalitarianism isn't just an academic exercise. It's a vital safeguard against the resurgence of such systems in our own time. By unraveling the mental mechanisms that allow totalitarian regimes to take hold, we arm ourselves with the knowledge to resist their siren call. In a world where democracy seems increasingly fragile, this understanding becomes more crucial than ever. The foundations of totalitarian psychology: fear, certainty, and herd mentality. At the heart of every totalitarian regime beats a pulsing core of fear. It's the lifeblood that sustains the system, coursing through the veins of both the oppressors and the oppressed. This isn't just any garden variety fear. Oh no. This is an all-encompassing, bone-deep terror that seeps into every crevice of daily life. Imagine waking up each morning, wondering if today is the day you'll be denounced by a neighbor, hauled off for so-called re-education, or simply vanish without a trace. It's a paralyzing anxiety that gnaws at the soul, leaving its victims desperate for any sense of security. And it's in this desperation that the totalitarian regime finds its foothold. The psychological terror inflicted by these systems is both a means and an end. It keeps the population docile and compliant, but it also serves a deeper purpose. In a world of constant threat, people crave certainty like a drowning man gasps for air. And who better to provide that certainty than the all-knowing, all-powerful state? Totalitarian regimes offer a seductive promise. Surrender your freedom, your individuality, and your very thoughts to us, and we'll keep you safe. We'll tell you what to think, how to act, who to love, who to hate. No more difficult decisions, no more moral quandaries, just blissful, mindless obedience. It's a bargain that many find hard to resist, especially when the alternative is a constant state of fear and uncertainty. The human mind, it turns out, has a remarkable capacity for self-deception when faced with overwhelming stress. We'll believe almost anything, no matter how absurd, if it offers us a lifeline of stability in a chaotic world. But the totalitarian mindset doesn't just prey on our fear of uncertainty. It also taps into our deep-seated need for belonging and group identity. Humans are social creatures. After all, we've evolved to seek safety in numbers, to conform to group norms for survival. Totalitarian regimes exploit this instinct, creating an us versus them mentality. It binds their followers together in a twisted sense of community. Think of it as a perverse form of tribalism. The regime becomes the tribe, its leader the revered chieftain. To question the leader or the party line is to risk expulsion from the group, a fate that, in the totalitarian mindset, is worse than death itself. This fear of ostracism is a powerful motivator, driving people to suppress their own doubts and eagerly participate in the oppression of others. The appeal of simple solutions to complex problems. This is another psychological lever that totalitarian regimes pull with gusto. In a world that often seems bewilderingly complex, the idea that all our troubles can be solved by following a single ideology or leader is particularly and powerfully attractive. It's a siren song that has lured countless individuals into the totalitarian fold. All our problems are caused by this one group, the regime might complain. Eliminate them and we'll create a utopia. Well, it's nonsense, of course. But it's the kind of nonsense that can capture the imagination of a desperate populace. The human mind loves patterns and simple explanations, We're hardwired to seek out easy answers, even when the questions are anything but. This psychological cocktail of fear, certainty-seeking, group conformity, and simplistic thinking forms the bedrock upon which totalitarian regimes build their power. It's a potent mixture, one that can transform ordinary people into willing participants in the most horrific acts of oppression. But the totalitarian toolkit doesn't stop there. No, we're just getting started. Psychological manipulation, the dark arts of totalitarian control. If fear and the need for certainty form the foundation of totalitarian psychology, then propaganda and thought control are the walls and roof of this oppressive structure. These regimes don't just want your obedience. They want your mind. They want your very soul. And they've developed a terrifyingly effective arsenal of psychological warfare techniques to achieve this goal. Propaganda in a totalitarian state is not just a matter of catchy slogans and patriotic posters, although there are plenty of those. It's an all-encompassing system of information control that seeks to reshape reality itself. Every news broadcast, every school lesson, every casual conversation becomes an opportunity for the regime to reinforce its narrative. The goal is nothing less than the complete colonization of the mind. The regime wants its citizens to internalize its ideology so deeply that they can no longer conceive of alternative ways of thinking. It's a process of mental rewiring that borders on brainwashing, transforming independent thinkers into obedient drones. But here's the really insidious part. The most effective propaganda doesn't just tell you what to think. It manipulates your emotions, your fears, your deepest insecurities. It plays on your sense of patriotism, your love for your family, your desire to belong. Before you know it, you're not just parroting the party line. You're fervently believing it, ready to defend it with your life. Cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortable mental state that arises when our beliefs conflict with reality. That's another powerful tool in the totalitarian arsenal. These regimes are masters at creating situations where people are forced to hold two contradictory ideas in their minds simultaneously. The psychological strain of this constant doublethink can be overwhelming. To cope, many people simply shut down their critical faculties altogether. They learn to accept whatever the regime tells them, no matter how absurd or self-contradictory. It's a form of mental self-defense that, paradoxically, leaves them even more vulnerable to manipulation. Dehumanization of opposition groups is another key strategy in the totalitarian playbook. By portraying dissidents or targeted minorities as subhuman, the regime makes it easier for ordinary citizens to participate in their oppression. It's a psychological trick as old as warfare itself. It's much easier to commit atrocities against an enemy if you don't see the enemy as being fully human. This process of dehumanization can take many forms. Sometimes it's blatant, with propaganda depicting the enemy as vermin or disease. Other times it's more subtle, using language and imagery that subtly strips away the humanity of the targeted group. Either way, the result is the same: a population primed to accept or even actively participate in horrific acts of cruelty. And then there's the cult of personality. That bizarre phenomenon where a leader becomes elevated to almost godlike status This isn't just garden variety hero worship, no. It's a carefully cultivated pseudo-religious fervor that places the leader at the center of national life. Their wisdom is unquestionable, and their power absolute. To doubt the leader is to doubt reality itself. The psychology behind the cult of personality is fascinating, and it's deeply disturbing. It taps into our innate human tendency to seek out strong leaders in times of crisis. But it goes further, manipulating our need for parental figures, our desire for simplicity in a complex world, and our yearning for a sense of higher purpose. In the most extreme cases, the leader becomes a sort of secular deity, their every word and action imbued with cosmic significance. Citizens are encouraged to see the leader not just as a political figure, but as their personal savior in the world. It's a psychological bond that can be incredibly difficult to break, even in the face of overwhelming evidence of the leader's crimes. These psychological manipulation techniques, they form a web of control that can ensnare even the most strong-willed individuals. They create a mental prison more effective than any physical walls, turning citizens into willing participants in their own oppression. But the impact of totalitarianism on individual psychology goes even deeper, leaving scars that can last for generations. The shattered self. The totalitarian's impact on individual psychology. Living under a totalitarian regime isn't just a matter of external oppression. It's an experience that fundamentally alters the human psyche, leaving deep and often permanent scars on the individual's soul. The constant pressure to conform, the ever-present fear of punishment, the need to constantly monitor one's thoughts and actions. All of these take a devastating toll on mental health and personal identity. One of the most profound impacts of totalitarianism is the loss of personal autonomy and identity. In a system where every aspect of life is controlled and monitored by the state, there's precious little room for individual expression or self-determination. Citizens are reduced to cogs in the great machine of the state, their personal desires and aspirations subsumed by the needs of the regime. This loss of self is more than just a philosophical concept. It's a lived reality that can lead to severe psychological distress. Imagine going through life feeling like a stranger in your own skin, unable to trust your own thoughts and feelings. It's a form of existential alienation that can lead to depression, anxiety, and a host of other mental health issues. The concept of learned helplessness, first identified by psychologist Martin Seligman, is particularly relevant in understanding the psychological impacts of totalitarianism. When people are repeatedly exposed to situations where they have no control over their circumstances, they often develop a sense of powerlessness that extends to all areas of life. In a totalitarian state, this learned helplessness becomes a way of life. Citizens learn that their actions have no impact on their fate, that resistance is futile, and that the only path to survival is complete submission to the will of the state. It's a mindset that can persist long after the fall of the regime, leaving survivors struggling to take control of their lives, even in freedom. The trauma inflicted by totalitarian regimes can have long-lasting effects that span generations. From the gulags of Stalin's Soviet Union to the killing fields of Pol Pot's Cambodia, the survivors of these horrors often carry deep psychological wounds for the rest of their lives. And tragically, this trauma doesn't end with them. It can be passed down to their children and their grandchildren through a process known as intergenerational trauma. Perhaps this is enough for now. Let me see. The fractured society. Let's just continue a few steps further along here. The fractured society. Social psychology under totalitarian rule. Totalitarianism doesn't just warp individual minds. It twists the very fabric of society itself. The social psychology of totalitarian regimes is a fascinating and a terrifying study in how systems of oppression can fundamentally alter human relationships and group dynamics. At the heart of this social transformation is the breakdown of trust. Imagine living in a society where you can't trust your neighbors, your co-workers, even your own family members, where every conversation is a potential trap, every friendship a possible betrayal. It's a reality that many who lived under totalitarian regimes don't have to imagine. They have lived it day in and day out. This fear of suspicion creates a society of atomized individuals, each isolated in their own bubble of fear and mistrust. The regime actively encourages this isolation, knowing that a divided populace is easier to control than one with strong social bonds. It's the old divide and conquer strategy played out on a massive scale. Skipping a little further down. Add in there the psychology of informants and collaborators. What drives a person to betray friends, family, community. The authoritarian personality provides some insight into this. Individuals that tend to be rigid in their thinking, intolerant of ambiguity, and highly susceptible to hierarchical power structures. They find comfort in strict rules and clear authority figures, making them ideal foot soldiers for totalitarian regimes. There are mass movements and crowd psychology that play a crucial role in the social dynamics of totalitarian societies. For example, the notorious rallies of Nazi Germany with their hypnotic rhythms and carefully choreographed spectacle. Well, a classic example of this manipulation of crowd psychology. Obedience to authority is another, a deeply ingrained human tendency. In a totalitarian state where the regime's authority is absolute and unquestionable, this tendency toward obedience can lead people to participate in acts of cruelty and oppression that they would never consider under normal circumstances. It's a chilling reminder of the power of social contexts to shape human behavior. Well, let's call it done now. Okay. Well, there we have it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now's your chance. Go ahead and do it right now. Activate the notification bell feature while you're at it. Click on the thumb up icon to instantly and easily share the joy of this channel with others. And by all means, please make note of the donation by PayPal information in the video description area. Any and all donations to Mind Voltage would be greatly appreciated and will use. I'm Turk Strawman, current resident at Mind Voltage. Be well.